The radical ideas and inventions of today will be tomorrow's everyday normal. On December 24th, we have our third and final, but really not all that final, square between Saturn and Uranus. This is going to be throwing us back to February and June of 2021 when these aspects were also exact. So the Saturn-Uranus square, we've been talking about it a lot on this channel this year. It is the defining aspect of 2021. And what the Saturn-Uranus square basically says is that it's time for our infrastructure to evolve. It has to happen. Our consciousness, our evolution, we've evolved past the confines. Like basically the shoes don't fit anymore and it's time for a new pair of shoes. So Uranus is putting pressure on our infrastructure to evolve. And so as we look around, I know that a lot of the problems that are now huge issues in the collective, these have been problems for a long time. But it's now that there's enough pressure felt collectively that it's like we have to do something about this now. Like we really don't have time to wait any longer. And I think about Saturn and Aquarius, I think about Uranus and Taurus, and I think about the pressure of urgency and the sense that we're running out of time. And I know that when thinking about Uranus and Taurus, we're thinking about your environmental issues. And this is something that is everyone's talking about now, is that we're running out of time. We have to make changes. And it's here as we lead up to this third exact square and we come out of Scorpio season where all these Scorpio planets were activating the Saturn-Uranus square, most recently Mars. As Mars has just shifted into Sag, I'm seeing airlines, like news about airlines doing hydrogen fuel. And again, I don't know a lot about all this stuff, but what I'm seeing is that there are innovations in our technology and how we coexist with our planet. And we're thinking about sustainability, and we're thinking about how we can shift the infrastructure. This morning on the news, they were talking about how we're going to get more charging stations for electric cars, and that was one of the expressed deterrence from people choosing an electric car is the less charging stations around, or the more difficulty finding them. But there are plans coming out that there are going to be more charging stations, for example. So I recently gave a lecture for NCGR. If you're not familiar with NCGR, it's one of the pillar organizations in the astrological community. So it's of course a deep honor to be invited to speak for them. I also write a quarterly column for them. So for those of you that didn't know, I'm also certified by them. So anyways, it's an honor to be invited to speak at their symposium, which was our online conference at the beginning of November. And I spoke on the Saturn-Uranus square and its relationship to technological breakthrough and innovation, as well as social evolution in terms of workers' rights. So I do see this square being in deep relationship with what we're now calling the Great Resignation, where a record number of people quit their jobs in the wake of the panorama, and also how so many people are either just retiring early, starting their own businesses, but it's also a time when we are seeing thousands of workers on strike, and it's because the economy's good, workers have the upper hand. I remember getting out of college, a decade ago, and the complaint was that, we're not able to get paid enough. But it's now the tables have completely turned and workers absolutely have the upper hand. So this is all related to the Saturn-Uranus square. We're going to continue to see the Saturn-Uranus square play out in the next year, because even though this is the last of the exact aspects that we're going to see, we are going to see the Saturn-Uranus square continue to influence the events and our evolution, our collective evolution into 2022. And this is because we're going to see Uranus align with the North Node. We're going to see Saturn square the nodes. I think the nodes are going to play a huge part in the workers' revolution, but more on that another time. And we're going to see the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio really involve Uranus and Saturn. We're also going to continue to see the personal planets link these planets together over the course of the next year. So we'll be transferring light from Saturn to Uranus and vice versa. So I think, not vice versa, just from Saturn to Uranus at this point. So we will continue to be working with this aspect. And like I said, this aspect brings imminent change to our infrastructure. Alexander Ruperti, one of my favorite astrologers, in their book, Cycles of Becoming, talks about how specifically this closing square cycle deals with the need for things to change, and how it's futile to hold on to the past. But you will see people trying to cling so hard to the past, which is what we're seeing now with these archaic abortion laws and things of that nature. Trying to hold on to the good old days is something that we've seen a lot here in the States. And it's because there's a reluctance to evolve. For many people, it's scary to evolve into the unknown. But we're also seeing civilians going to space. So we have this clash of the tradition versus the future. And one thing I will just remind you, 2 quips I have is 1, need begets invention. And this last year has totally shifted our lives. So there's a whole set of new needs and people with more time to say, I'm going to invent something to try to solve this. Or I have this wild business idea that, is gonna, kind of prioritize workers and this and that. Or automation. I honestly see it going both ways, but depending on the industry. But anyways, it's time for something new. It's time for something new, and we're going to see breakthroughs. We're going to see inventions. We're going to see systems that are suggested. And my other quip is that what sounds radical today will be the new normal tomorrow. So looking at our life right now, I love the quote that says, like, I'm my ancestors' wildest dream, because there's so much profoundness in that statement on its own, right? But I think in thinking about the Saturn-Uranus square and in thinking about the people of the past and thinking about the freedoms that we have now, the choices that we have to design our own lives, and the technology that we have, I think about this cycle and its connection to the French Revolution or the Haymarket Square riots, where we had our first May Day and it established like the 9 to 5 and the 5-day work week. Workers of the world unite. This is very much connected to that. And so what we have today is considered revolutionary to an ancient person, or to a person 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So in other words, we've outgrown the shoe and it's time to innovate. So we're going to see some ideas start to be implemented that might seem radical to a lot of people, but to the other half of the people, we're like, no, this makes sense. And it's in this time of pressure where the current or the old order isn't working, we actually have to try something on the new frontier. We have to try something that hasn't been tried before in this way. And that's where the current is going, and there's no fighting it. So we're starting to see movement, and we're going to continue to see it next year. So be on the lookout for technological innovations. Be on the lookout for radical new ways of how we live and how we work. And if you are someone who has that big, brave idea, this is the time to bring it. So that was your Saturn-Uranus astrology shot of the day. And yeah, it should be exciting. I'm not certain if there's going to be exactly like an event happening now. Usually the other planets kind of want to bring it into being. But so consider this a check-in on the broader stroke picture of where we're at in our human course of history and development. So that was your astrology shot of the day, and I hope it's juicy for you. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today. For more astrology in your world, you can connect with me on all platforms at Astro Catherine. You can also study with me. I've got an upcoming course on secondary progressions, so head to my website and check it out.